Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk, and myself, JM. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless text and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their everyday life. We have close to 20 members on Zoom and close to 100 members on Facebook. I do have Anushri helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vash. Please welcome to the show. You're on mute. I think we still can't hear. Maybe I can unmute you. Let me see.
Thank you very much, JM. It's great to see you and great to see everybody else. And speaking of seeing, I have no problem with you keeping your cameras on if you feel like it, because it helps the interaction. So thank you, those who feel up to it. And I completely understand, too, if you're doing other things, building a house, remodeling your car, whatever, it's okay also. Or if you just want to lay back a little bit, that's okay, too. Also, during this session, I'll be inviting comments, participation, reflections. We want to hear from you and have a dialogue, not just my monologue. It makes it much more interesting and expansive. So feel free. You can use the chat box on the other side if you want to be a little less forward. The best of all is if you like to unmute and just speak for yourself at any time. And I'll actually, at intervals, call for reflections. So reflections just mean anything you hear that sounds interesting, that piques your interest, that you feel like it's an idea you can put in your pocket and take with you, and maybe you use it tonight or tomorrow or the next day or share it with a friend. I'd like to hear those things. So I first offer my respects to my spiritual master and to all of you. Thank you very much for being on this spiritual journey with us. And today I'm continuing our discussions, which are derived from the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali Muni and also by the Bhagavad Gita, a dialogue spoken around 5,000 years ago during a battle or just before the battle at Kurukshetra. And it has been an enduring text of wisdom about balance in life and going beyond the modalities of this world into the fourth dimension, into the spiritual realms of life, and how it's an inward journey, as well as an outward one. And that's where the balance comes in. The last few weeks, we've really been going into some of the practices that Patanjali recommends. We talked about the yamas and the niyamas. That is, how we interact with other people in the world and other entities will affect our own consciousness. There's a reaction for the way that we deal with people. And then we talked about the niyamas, our personal disciplines, the way that we live in balance with nature and with our bodies and minds personally. And these are the cloak, if you will, of a person who's advancing spiritually, the yamas and niyamas, taking personal responsibility. For instance, as a reminder, the first yama, or the way we deal with the world, which is promoted by Patanjali and all of the sages and yogis that came after him, is ahimsa. Himsa is roughly translated from the Sanskrit nowadays as non-violence. Hingsa actually means to be envious of somebody else. Think, why should he have it? I should have that. In fact, sometimes human beings have known to kill others to take away their stuff so they can have it. That's a kind of envy that leads to violence. So ahimsa is an all-consuming yama, or way that we should conduct ourselves according to Patanjali, so that our minds can attain the state of samadhi, or absorption, beyond the waves of the material world. And then the niyamas, just as an example, we talked about shocham. That's one of the 5. I'm giving a small sample of each one of them. Shocham means cleanliness, inwardly and outwardly, keeping the mind uncluttered. There is a way in which I have a circle of influence and a circle of concern. If I'm concerned about all the goings and comings of the world that I can't do anything about, my mind may be like a ceiling fan that's going around and around with anxiety. However, if I stay tightly within my circle of influence, that is the pragmatic present. What can I do something about right now? What do I have influence over? And I stay in that area. My internal environment is a lot cleaner, simpler. And my external environment, when it's clean, shuchi, I keep my body clean. Yogis bathe a lot so that they stay clean. This is a cultivation of the higher modalities. And also, they don't collect too much stuff. This is called atyahara. Ati means extreme, and ahara means collecting or eating. So not eating more than one needs, and not collecting anything more than one needs. This is one of the principles. Give examples of the way in which Patanjali describes lifestyle as affecting our consciousness. And at various times during these classes, we'll go back to those because they're worth looking at and seeing how we can adapt them to one degree or another in our lives, because they make a profound difference in the way we live. Today, however, since many times I've mentioned the modulations of nature, these are described in the Bhagavad Gita as the gunas. Guna also means rope. And the idea is that there are three major categories of influence or modalities or modulations within nature that define and control everything. And we, as human beings, can take up a practice through which we purify the kinds of modes that we have in us and in our minds, very particularly. So before we get into that, and I will give you a way to diagnose yourself, if you like. You can look at some of the symptoms and the activities of those who are affected by the various modes in nature, and you can compare them to the ways that you may also have these symptoms and the ways of acting in life. Does that sound fair enough, or does that sound scary? Okay, JM likes it. We'll keep going. Before we get into all that, let's do something experiential, because we can. Let's take a moment to introspect, to look within and see what's there. And if for a moment you would sit up a little straighter than you were 2 seconds ago, you don't have to be rigid, but if you straighten your spine a little bit, then your mind comes to attention and says, hey, something important is happening here. And then close your eyes, but don't get sleepy. Keep your mind alert. And as you close your eyes, bring your awareness, your attention to your breathing. This breathing is affecting all the different functions of our bodies, subtle and gross. And if we calibrate our breathing and bring it to a nice even pace and make sure that we're utilizing most of our lung space, we can get an immediate calming effect. So try that. And if it helps to keep your mind on your breath, then as you exhale, think out. And as you inhale again, mentally say in. And don't worry about any other obligations that you have. Somebody else will take care of them right now. Just be. You're not a human doing, you're a human being. And you have every right to exist, and you always exist, and you always will exist. And be right here, right now, in the present. And just feel satisfied to breathe and relax, but stay alert. And now, as you're breathing, add the element of gratitude. It's not hard to do. It's real. We're getting oxygen. It's being supplied. and we have the wherewithal to exercise our lungs and take that oxygen in. And this is a gift. And if you breathe, and as you breathe in, take in some gratitude. As you breathe out, let go of any anxiety and realize that I'm being maintained by a higher force. I'm not the maintainer. I am being maintained. And now, please transfer your attention to the region of your heart, around the center of your chest is the seat of consciousness. You are a non-neural, non-chemical, non-mechanical, non-temporal organizing particle that is completely 100% separate from your body and mind. And you've always existed. You always will exist, and you exist right now in the present. So be aware of your existence. And just be in your heart region. And now, as you continue to breathe and keep your mind and attention in your heart region, be aware that you're witnessing your thoughts. Your mind is a substance. It's an extremely subtle substance. But it is a substance and a part of nature. You, on the other hand, are the witness of that substance. And as you're noticing it, notice that there are turnings or currents that go through that substance. It's energy that's moved by currents. And see if you can notice any of the currents going through the substance of your mind. Just look at them. You are aloof. You are the watcher. You are the witness. And you're watching the modulations, the currents, the ripples that come through your mind, one after another. And keep your breath even, and stay alert, and stay sitting a little bit erect but comfortably. And please notice your mind. And now I'm going to repeat the syllable Om, which is a mantra that synchronizes all of the spiritual energy within your chakras, particularly the heart chakra. And behind closed mics, you can use your vocal cords now to repeat the mantra with me. Om. And notice how the vibration has entered your ears, it's gone into your mental system and into your heart. The vibration of the mantra can overwrite the churnings in the mind and bring higher impressions, canceling out the lower ones. This Patanjali describes in the Yoga Sutras. And please bring your awareness back to your breath. Take one more nice inhalation, and as you exhale, rub your hands together to get some friction and come back, opening your eyes into the room. And this introspection is a way that we can daily reset and notice that I am a witness of my thoughts, I'm a witness of the body. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions, Naiva kinchit karomi ti, yukto manyita tattvavit. A person who sees the truth, that means a tattvavit, a truth knower or seer, is one who is able to witness and know that I'm not the life situation, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, but I'm the witness of it. I myself stand aloof. Okay, let's take a few reflections, if there are any, before I start laying down some heavyweight PowerPoint slides for your consideration. If there's anybody that had any thoughts or reflections just from the meditation we've had so far together. What was it like for you? And were there any even tiny breakthroughs that you felt from taking a few minutes to observe what is going on inside? What did you see? What did you feel?
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
When you mentioned that somebody else is going to take care about your job, at that juncture, I was thinking, oh, who is going to do it? But then as I got, more involved in this practice, I felt like, wait a minute, I'm okay actually, not doing that job. And I survived. I'm happy with it because I was in the middle of doing something. So it felt like it is easy to change your mind, provided you have a good understanding. Otherwise, you got really sucked into what you're doing. So it's good to take time off and feel yourself separate from our situation. So I
Yes,
felt
this is an excellent point. Thank you for making it. In one of the wisdom literatures, Srimad Bhagavatam, the avatar Hamsa gives this instruction. It's not that we're detaching from the world, but we're detaching from our mind, because our mind reflects the world. It's a repository that takes on all the impressions of the world. We actually never see the world directly. What we see is the imagery, which is photographed upon the surface of the mind. We're observing that. And so he says, when you are able to witness that you're not the mind, then you're also automatically aloof from the world. And that also doesn't mean that you don't act in the world. It just means you have enlightened engagement with the world because of your ability to notice the difference between yourself and your mind. Okay,
There are a couple of
there is. Yes.
There are a couple of reflections on Zoom. One is from Michael Adams. Says that amazing how still and silent one can become in a very short time.
Isn't it though? And it's easy to get caught in the storm that goes on in the mind. And I have to do this. What if I don't do that? And this is a kind of chatter that's mentioned in the Yoga Sutras and the Srimad Bhagavatam that describes a certain level of consciousness that we're aware of when the mind, it goes on with chatter constantly at that level of awareness that there's never a stoppage to it. It's like, you got to do this, and you forgot to do that, and there's 12 people waiting for you, and what are you going to do when the rent's due? And it goes on and on and on like that. And there's no respite from that until one takes the time to notice the various levels of consciousness and to rise above it. Thank you very much, Michael. What else, JM?
We have Sheila who says, notice that I'm exhausted. It was very peaceful. Sense of relief that I could let go and things would be taken care of.
That's an astute observation, one that Rajesh made also earlier. And there's a way of noticing the power of nature around me. In fact, the wisdom literatures talk about how you might notice that even though you don't ask reversals to come into your life, they come in anyway. And it says in the same way, good things will come of their own accord, because they're coming because of the momentum of our past karma. So you needn't worry about it so much. It's not that you have to endeavor so hard. And also that there is a source of our energy, which is really through alignment. When we're aligned with our higher nature, everything in the world seems easier to deal with, and is, because we have proper perspective. Good.
We have Jose also mentions that I notice my resistance.
Very good point. Thank you. In fact, if we're floating down a river, we might see the trees going by and think, oh, I'm going really fast and this is great. But if someone says, turn around, you're going to the waterfall, and you start swimming against the current, you'll see how strong it is. So when we actually do practice meditation and come to the point of noticing the mind and taming it, then we'll notice its mighty force. Let's show a few slides, and then we'll come back to reflections and see if there's any questions too.
Sure.
So today I'm breaking down some of the points that are made in both the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras, and I promised you a self-diagnosing system. So we're talking about the citta vrttis. Citta vrttis means the waves in our mind. The mind is a naturally passive and neutral surface. But I take in all day long, I have these two cameras pointing outwards. They're constantly taking information. I have these two recording devices that are taking in information from the environment. And these impressions come into the mind, which is a very subtle energy, and they create waves. Thoughts, feelings, desires. We might be able to put them into various categories and notice these waves. The waves are manifest in feelings that I have. These feelings are due to previous impressions. These Patanjali calls samskars. The samskar means that I've experienced some pleasure or I've experienced some suffering in the world, and that makes an impression upon my mind. Let's just say, you stay on that one just for a sec. Let's just say that I ate some food, a perfectly good food, but I just happened to be sick that day anyway, consequentially, incidentally. And because of that, then my stomach got really upset. Maybe, well, I don't want to get too graphic here, but let's just say I got sick when I ate that particular food. And I remember this from when I was growing up as a child. My brother never liked lima beans, because once when he ate lima beans, he happened to be sick. And that left an impression on his mind that lima beans make me sick. So whenever he'd see a lima bean, he'd recoil. No lima beans for me. And there's a way in which these feelings accumulate as samskars in our mind. Some of them are major impressions, some of them are minor impressions. Nonetheless, they're cumulative. And these also lead to desires. You might have noticed that people advertise. Has anybody ever noticed that? You see something, oh, that's really me. I have to have that. A desire comes into my mind. And there's a way that technology imitates the mind nowadays. Like if you go and look for a backpack on REI's website, when you come back on Facebook, you're going to notice that several other companies have presented you with options for backpacks. I say, yeah, how about this one? How about that one? If you click on one of them, then you're going to get an exponential number of other offers that will come in, maybe even related to backpacks. There's, how about some camping equipment? How about a vacation to Yosemite? And all these things will spring from my vritti that I got from looking at something and saying, oh, maybe I want that. And so that's the way that these impressions come into my mind, and the mind multiplies them. And the echo of those impressions is what I'm hearing as I move through the world and I make my decisions. And what is the existential effect of all this? I can see it on a daily basis, perhaps, just like a moment ago when we were looking at our own mind stuff and we were noticing that there are movements. We can notice that. But what does it lead to in the long term? Now, we're talking about the filling in of the impressions. And this, Patanjali says, let's say that you're walking on a beach and you leave impressions of your feet upon the beach, and then someone comes along and pours in some plaster of Paris. And when that dries, then they pour in something like copper or bronze, and then you have a perfect representation of your feet. And in the same way, Patanjali says these samskars, or the impressions that we have within our mind, are filled in by nature, by the material nature. And this is what creates our future bodies. The body that I have now is a result of my previous thoughts, impressions, and when I leave this plaster of Paris-like body that I have now, I get another one, according to the impressions that were there within my mind. This is a process of transmigration. So we're walking through this life. We exit, the non-neural, non-chemical, non-temporal particle of conscious energy, leaves this present biomechanical body, and then we're accommodated. The desires, impressions that we had are molded into another body, and it's not necessarily human, depending on our consciousness, depending on the quality of our consciousness. We receive a particular quality of body in the next life. This is the very description of the mechanism of what's called, in very gross terms, reincarnation, which means like you just got new flesh, carne, reincarnate. So this is the subtle mechanism that makes it work, according to the Bhagavad Gita and the wisdom literatures, Yoga Sutras, etc. Let's pause for a second from the slides and come back into the Zoom room and see if there's any questions that will expand the topic. Do you have any questions about how this works? Or do you have any reflections on it? Any of the description from Patanjali, does it sound interesting, shocking, reasonable, unreasonable? What do you think?
There is one reflection on Zoom chat. Not sure of the name, it's just a period. It says, your usage of metaphors and analogies was superb.
Well, pray tell, which one did you like? And while that kind person is writing it in, let's see what else we have. Anything?
Rajesh mentioning some have a theory of spirit duality, and part of it with us here and the rest is on the other side. Is that what is your opinion about it?
This is a question requested by Wolf actually, so I just copy and pasted.
I see. Some have a theory of spirit duality when part of it with us here and the rest of it on the other side. Patanjali, Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom literatures, it's described that it's not that we have a spirit, it's that we are a spirit. So oftentimes there's this, though in the language, of course it's semantics, we'd say that of course the word soul is used a lot. It has various connotations, but the non-material particle of consciousness, the spirit within the body, is us. And it's not that we are there, we are the body, and we have a spirit within, but we are actually that spiritual soul. And that spiritual entity then is accommodated in another body at the time that he or she leaves the present body. Oh, there's more questions. Let's see.
Yes, we have Upadhyay who's asking, how do you change long-formed sanskars or impressions?
This is the practice of meditation, especially through mantra meditation, Patanjali recommends, and also through self-study called Swadhyaya, by reading wisdom literatures, which are coming from a different perspective. They allow us to develop a higher perspective ourselves. And then there are the various lifestyle changes that we can make. One of them is to transfer the way that we work, the intention for which we work. Instead of reward-seeking activity, whatever I'm doing, I want the reward, I want the fruit. There is a way of working where I'm working for either duty, I'm not expecting a reward, I'm doing it as duty, this is a higher motivation for work, or I'm doing it out of a sense of love, and I'm doing it as selfless service. Like a mother serves her child selflessly and with love, ideally. And there's this outpouring of love, I'm just doing it. And this is called bhakti or karma yoga. I work in the world, but I'm not reward seeking. So it may look the same. Oh, this person's working, that person's working. However, there are two copper wires. One of them has electricity coming through it. The other one doesn't. Touch the two wires and you'll find a difference. No, don't touch them. I'm not recommending it. But I'm just saying you'll know. So when the intention in our work, our daily work, is not reward seeking, but is actually in service. I'm doing service out of either duty or I'm doing it out of a sense of offering it to my original conscious source. Then it becomes transformational. And the kind of samskars that are written there begin, Patanjali says, to weaken, and then gradually they're replaced with the higher samskars that especially come through the practice of mantra meditation and through the reading of wisdom literatures. This is his prescription. JM, what else?
So we have Mansi who just asked, what determines the life form you take in the next reincarnation?
Yes, so this is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Have you ever ordered Manasi? Is that her name?
Yes, Mansi. Yes.
Mansi, have you ever heard of people ordering a customized computer online? I mean, I think still on the Apple website, if you go to order a computer, do you want this much memory or that much memory? Do you want this kind of keyboard, that kind of keyboard? You go down the list and you click off the boxes, and this is what it'll cost you at the end. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a description of how, because of our present activities and the impressions we're creating within our mind, we're ordering up our next body. And according to the varied consciousness that we develop by our practices and associations in this life, material nature naturally accommodates that by filling in those desires and giving us a physical body that we inhabit in the next life.
We have Meena who's asking how important it is to meditate first thing in the morning.
It's very important, because every day is important. Steve Jobs used to say, you should treat every day as your last day, because one day you'll be right. And there's a way in which yogis constantly think like this, that this day is very important. Don't let any slip by. And one of the most important ways to contextualize the day and to be able to have enlightened engagement throughout the rest of your day is to start your morning with meditation. And if you can get in that habit, which I admit is not easy because there's so many various distractions that come to us and various obligations we may have pulling at us, but it is possible, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, by practice and by non-attachment. And if we can develop that habit of meditating first thing in the morning, then we'll align ourselves properly to be able to move about the world in an enlightened way.
So we have the reflection from the person who mentioned the metaphors really was liked. When you mentioned we watch our mind like waves, it was a wonderful visual representation of how you're watching the mind like waves.
And literally, this is what Patanjali is describing. Vritti means in Sanskrit to turn, or it's described as a modulation or a wave that comes through. So let's use that as a segue, and we'll come back to any other questions in a second if I don't chew up the whole clock. And we'll look at what I actually promised, which was a self-diagnosis of the modes of material nature. So these are called Sattva, light; Rajas, confusion; darkness; Tamas, darkness. These are the three qualities of modulations. Sometimes they're called gunas. They're like ropes. They tie everything together here in this world, including our minds. And the quality of nature that we cultivate will determine not only the quality of our life now, but also, as we've been discussing, which type of facility we get in our next life. And of course, just as an important point to mention, beyond there is a dimension beyond these three modalities. These three modalities deal with this cosmic, mechanical, material world. We, on the other hand, are conscious energy. We're different from this energy, and we can rise above the mechanics of this world. And that's the ultimate goal of spiritual practice. Having said that, I'm going to give you some food for thought. And I ask you to please brace yourself. So here are the descriptions of tamas, the lowest energy, which is darkness. And this is when consciousness is contracted and it creates these symptoms. One feels depressed, intolerant, fear-stricken, without conscience, filled with false expectations. I had a friend who was apparently affected by Tamas when I was growing up. And he always had ideas about how he was going to win the lottery and then be successful in life. He also smoked a lot of pot and was very prone to just expecting that something might happen instead of doing anything about it. Deluded, angry, stingy, a person who's in the mode of darkness, tamas, always holding on, not giving to others, calculates when he gets a gift, oh no, now I got to give back to somebody else. I won't give more than they gave me. And hateful. And behaviors manifest in this way in tamas. Lazy, uncontrolled addictions are a product of tamas. Frivolous, quarrelsome, like the energy where just arguing back and forth, back and forth. In fact, I read a book years ago it was called How to Win an Argument. And the author described, who was teaching about this whole genre of how to have a conversation that's fruitful. He said most people have no idea what they're arguing about after a while. They're just arguing for the sake of it. So this quarrelsomeness is a product of tamas. Then we have dependent and parasitic. I'm just holding on, taking from others. I don't have any of my own enterprise, no impetus for it. Hypocritical, constantly complaining and lamenting, fatigued always, violent and inclined to perversion. So this is a dark scenario created by a dark energy. So this is the tamas energy that creates the kind of inertia and confusion that comes in to our life from time to time. The next energy, if somebody had, I saw a reflection or a question come in. Let's just pause for a second because these slides can be a little overbearing.
Sure. So there are a couple of them which have come in. One is from Sheila. How can you help someone in tamas? It's very unsettling to be around a family member that is in that state.
Well, that's very compassionate of you to think like that, how to help somebody in tamas. One of the items that is noticeably helpful and which is recommended throughout the yoga literatures is to change the kind of sound vibration that you have coming into your home. For instance, if there is a low vibration coming in, for instance, through, let's say, television. Television tends to have a lot of programming that brings in all kinds of rajasic, that's the middle energy, and tamasic energy. Imagery, temptations, things like that, and also the sound vibration that comes out. It's coming from people who are profit motivated mostly, and so on. So if you can find a way to adjust the sound vibration in your home, I've done this, anywhere I'm involved with any project or institution, the first place I go is the airwaves. In my own home, every room has speakers in it, and there's a way in which I'm always bringing in the vibration and make sure it's always going. And you'll notice also in warfare that the first thing that one does is conquer the airwaves, because even if you're not there on the ground in the place, that if you start putting in messages that come through the radio waves and people are listening, they start to transform. So sound is the most transformative energy. And if you can bring in a higher quality of sound, especially sound that is directed towards self-realization, that can help transform those who are in the mode of tamas. And we can go more detail about that a little later. Okay, let's go into rajas and then we'll take a few more.
Sure.
Take these in doses. So the next higher energy is called rajas, or sometimes it's translated as passion. This creates confusion, and also it's also unlimited hankerings and desires. So the statement "too much is not enough" describes rajas. Whatever I get, I want more. So here are some of the symptoms, and see if you can relate to any of them in yourself or in others. Proud, considering oneself superior to others, fondness for hearing oneself praised, overconfident, inwardly anxious, materially ambitious, quick-tempered. So this is anger is a very dangerous energy. For instance, if you become angry in 1 second, you can make a gesture, say a phrase or a word that can forever change your situation in life. It's so dangerous, that energy. And this is coming from rajas. Rajas is a low energy. It's in the middle. It's above tamas, but it's very low. And I think we can all relate to quick-tempered anger that just swells up suddenly. We say it, and then it can't be taken back. You can try, but it's like trying to unring a bell. Motivated by prestige, uncontrolled desires, dissatisfied even in gain and success. I got everything I wanted. Not good enough. Exceptionalism. Behaviors, intense endeavor, addicted to sex, belligerent, prone to ridicule others, prone to advertise one's own prowess, justifying actions by one's strength, and audacious in speech and action. This doesn't sound like any kind of people we're aware of, right? Anywhere in the world? Not so much. Maybe. So
House.
these are general energies that we, first of all, can observe in ourselves. I look at this and I say, where are these kinds of symptoms and behaviors in me coming from? And if I'm careful to observe them, first of all, bring the light of awareness and consciousness to them, I can start noticing them, and Patanjali says this is the first step towards rising above them, is becoming aware of them and noticing what they are and that they are present there. Did anybody notice any of the symptoms or behaviors that you can, any of them that you can relate to in yourself? Of course, it's easy enough for me to point to other people and say, yeah, that person's got that. But could you see any of them in yourself? And if so, do you want to be vulnerable and tell us which one? What else do we have in the chat?
So we have Ivana, who mentions Rajas looks like unbalanced first and second chakras. Are they related?
Very much so. And it really is an out of balance mode, because I'm constantly moving and trying to become something. The highest mode that we'll look at, which is in balance, which is Sattva, means that I realize I already am something. And yes, the modalities do relate to higher and lower chakras as well. They're visceral in the sense that there are higher and lower energies within the body as well. And it's not that these are utilitarian. That is, in order to sleep at night, you need to touch that tamas energy. Otherwise, you're not going to go to sleep. And so the modes have to be in balance, just as our chakras have to be in balance. Anything else there, JM?
Yeah, so Bonnie Hines is asking, what are extreme endeavors?
Extreme endeavors. Okay. Working so hard on a project that you just have to prove yourself that you drop dead trying. And it's happened. I mean, I know people, and not personally. Well, actually, I know one personally, but I'm not going to get into that. Who have worked themselves to death. In fact, I spend, a couple months a year traveling to Japan and back, and there's a phenomena there that developed over in modern history about overworking as a sign of loyalty to the company and so forth. And there's actually a phrase which describes how one works till one drops dead, over endeavor, for just mundane things. There's no reason to overextend the body to a point where you become sick. So this would be a point of rajas. Okay, let's go to Sattva
Sure.
for a little relief. This is the modality in nature that brings in some light and balance. So here are the symptoms of Sattva that you can observe in yourself. Humble, content, satisfied in any condition. That means we're not dependent on the external environment. Whatever it is, I'm okay. Controlled mind, tolerant, clarity of mind, discriminating. I know I have this, what's called, discrimination is called vivek. It means I understand what's in my best interest and what's not. I don't do crazy things that jeopardize my health, the health of others, health of the planet, and so forth. I have some discrimination. This is the light of Sattva. Learns from the past, insightful of the future, and embarrassed at improper action. So in Tamas, somebody might do something completely inappropriate and just like, whatever, live with it. But Sattva, there's a sense of being responsible for one's actions and so forth. And here are the behaviors: equipoised, self-restrained, controlled of senses, generous, you'll notice the opposite of tamas, stingy, charitable, truthful, modest, free from frivolity, detached from sense indulgence. The happiness is coming from within, and it's not that one becomes pathologically austere and therefore just restrains the senses from everything, but lives balanced and isn't dependent on wanton sense indulgence to be happy. Dutiful, simplicity in dealings, peaceful, compassionate to humans and animals, and consistent in word and deed. And why compassionate to humans and animals? You can come back to the Zoom. Why compassion? Because in Sattva, it said, Sattvam yad brahmadarshanam, a person who's in Sattva has trenchant vision. Trenchant comes from the word trench, and if you trace it back further into Latin, it goes into terre and back into Sanskrit, which means that you're able to see beyond the surface. You're able to observe causality in the world and see what's below the surface. So in America, our perennial endeavor to show equality to all people can be extended to those in Sattva, to all beings. It's not just people. The animals are citizens also of this state, because they're in Sanskrit, they're called praja. Ja means to be born, and pra means in the place. So they're also born here. Squirrels are people too. They also have rights. And this is the mood of Sattva, because I'm seeing not just the external body, that this body's better than another body. This is rajas. And this is what causes these conflicts on the external level, is rajas, that I hate you because you look different from me. In fact, I remember there was this television show when I was a kid. It was called, I think, The Outer Limits. And it had this one episode where there was a group of people that were white on this side of their face and black on this side, and another group of people that were white on this side and black on that side. And then they had huge wars. They were fighting against each other. And this is Rajas seeing the differences. But from Sattva, one sees, oh, there's actually a commonality behind all people. They're spiritual beings beyond the body. And then they're able to actually empathize with others and feel what other people are going through. This is also trenchant. It's empathy is a very powerful Sattva behavior and insight. Okay, so those are the modalities. I'm leaving just a few minutes to talk about the ways in which to cultivate the higher modalities in nature. But let's see if there's any more reflections or questions in describing these.
Quite a few of them are coming in. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear.
Yeah. So Wolf Sanderson is asking, looking at the cosmic journey picture, if you assume that the left side of the journey is 120 years, how much time is the right side of the journey? How much time is that?
It's really dependent on your accommodation and how quickly it's ready. But generally, I've read different descriptions. And then I think what you're saying, what you're asking is, once you leave this present body, how long does it take to get accommodated into another body? And it's as they say in Japanese, jido teiki, it's automatic by material nature. So it's rather quick. In a matter of months, one can be transferred into the situation. But that's a very simplistic answer, because the wisdom literatures give a lot of different scenarios because there's so many different kinds of consciousness. For instance, sometimes, people prematurely leave their body due to suicide or other reasons. And then there's a different kind of consideration that's taken up in accommodating the next body. But jitoteki, automatic and fairly quickly, at least relative to geological time.
We have Kritika who's asking, if we are the spirit and not the body, does it mean that we shouldn't prioritize our body and take care of it the way we are doing currently?
The direction given in wisdom literatures is that you should take care of your body. It's just a matter of how you view it, though. So the body is like a sacred vessel because you're in it, and that's why you should take care of it. And so here's a little mantra that goes with that. You should eat to live, don't live to eat. That's the mood of the wisdom literatures. Is, of course, you should eat the best food you can get. Get organic and grow it yourself, and eat foods that are in the mode of sattva. And also, you have a duty to protect yourself because this body is a gift. If someone loans you their car and you go out joyriding and you smash it up and bring it back, say, sorry, that's unacceptable. So this body is a gift of nature that we've been given. So the wisdom literatures say, it's given to you as a gift. You should really take care of it as best you can. But don't get overly consumed and think that I am my body and that I'm living only to eat. But actually, I'm eating the proper things. I'm living in the proper way so that I can live. And living actually means to explore consciousness. The unexamined life is not worth living, is the attitude of wisdom literatures. And that's what we're meant to do. That's this very specific power that we have as human beings, is to introspect, to ask bigger questions. Other than that, we're exactly the same as animals. They do all the same things. They can mate, actually, oftentimes much better than humans. They can defend. I have a skunk that lives in my backyard somewhere, and I just give him a wide path. He already has automatically built-in defense. Human beings build guns and bombs and things like that to defend themselves. Same, just a little more sophisticated and destructive. And then we have sleeping. Bears sleep, we sleep. Bears sleep in a cave. We buy a Swedish Tempur-Pedic to get maximum sleep experience and so forth. So the differential is that we can inquire. So keep yourself healthy, take care of yourself, keep your relationships good, have enlightened interaction with the world and with your body. That's what the wisdom literatures teach.
Ivana is asking, the vibration of the thoughts have a frequency. Our emotions of fear, sadness are normally called low vibration. Do you know how those waves look like? Is there a scale you can share from low vibration thoughts to high?
Not really. I don't have such a meter. I mean, the mind is such a subtle element that I'm unaware of anything that really shows it, except for there's a way in which, as sentient beings, we're very perceptive. For instance, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I just perceived that he was a little sad. He wasn't trying to demonstrate that he was sad, but I picked up on it right through the Zoom. I called him this morning and said, "Are you okay?" And it emanates, the mode emanates from our countenance, from the sound of our voice. Have you ever had a mother hears a child crying and it's like, okay, that's just cranky. And here's another sound and it goes, uh-oh, that's something dangerous. Something's going on in there. We can hear it. It comes out in the tonalities that emanate from different people. And a person who's self-realized, who's actually living beyond sattva in the spiritual vibration, when he or she speaks, that vibration transforms us. So that's why it's recommended that we should have what's called satsang, or association with high-minded individuals who are cultivating these higher modes, because then it affects us. It gets into us. Well, go ahead, Jam. Is there anything else?
No, there are quite a few of them. Lavanya is asking, how do we deal with consequences of your actions that impacted other people so that it does not affect current life or next life?
Well, it's generally recommended that if you've made offenses to others, that you beg forgiveness and move on. And if you can't, if they've already departed, then you should go on and try to improve yourself so that it doesn't happen again. And a tiny bit of remorse for activities is an inspiration. But if you pour it on too thick and become pathologically morose, then you can sabotage your own advancement, because then you say, what's the use? I already offended people. But one of the points that Patanjali, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita makes is none of us is permanently disqualified. Every one of us can rise in due course of time from any situation. Out of any modality, we're meant to actually rise. Well, I think we're leaving a couple of them on the board, aren't we? I don't want to take everybody past the time too much, but we'll just chant one mantra before we go. Is that okay, everybody? I'll need a thumbs up from the reactions like this. Okay, I got a few. Let's do a couple of mantras, and we're only doing a couple right now because I ran us out of time. But I do recommend that you take time to do mantra meditation every morning. You can join the 21-day spiritual fitness challenge and track your progress. But take a little time to sit down in a quiet place by yourself, put up a do not disturb sign, and try these mantras in the morning, as someone on this board recommended. You're welcome, Sheila. Good to see you. Thank you. Okay, so the first mantra is Nitai Gauranga. And let's just get an idea of this. Please sit up a little straighter than you were a second ago. You can close your eyes, and you can follow as I say the mantra from behind closed mics, and use your vocal cords and just listen to the sound. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. And the next mantra is the Maha Mantra. This word Krishna, Krish means existence. Na means Ananda, which is joyful. So actually, the source of our consciousness, our original conscious source, is full of Ananda, or bliss, joyfulness. That's our nature also. But when we're affected by the modalities in our minds, we become covered and forget about our original nature. From this mantra, we uncover and we discover our original nature. So let's try this mantra. First of all, we'll just say it in a normal voice, and this is what's called japa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's called japa. If you take some time to repeat it so you can hear it yourself. And then this is a sample of what's called kirtan, or singing the mantra. So I'll say it one time to a melody, and then you can repeat on the second time we say the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now we'll come back into the Zoom room. And I thank everybody for taking so much of your valuable time. I hope that you heard something today in the monologue, in the presentation, or in the discussion that you can take away with you to make your life better, happier, brighter. And I'll look forward to seeing you, or hearing you, or seeing your comments next week at the same time. Is that correct, JM?
Yes, we'll be meeting same time next week, Friday, 12 noon.
Okay. Remember, everybody, please keep the transcendental vibration going, and that where your attention goes, your energy flows. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
See
much.
you soon.
Thanks.
Have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.